Chapter 1 Traveling Through the World of One Piece. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the 19th century, in an internet cafe in Shenzhen City, there was a young man sitting on a certain machine. He was quite handsome. His name was Lin Hai. He was years old. He was meters tall. He was in good health, male and liked women. An orphan. I just watched the anime One Piece, and Zoro used his ultimate move to hit Kaido with a knife. It was really cool. And that straw hat Luffy is simply a loser, he will be so domineering. Lin Hai was in a good mood and was going to play some League of Legends to celebrate. Soon, Lin Hai grabbed the mid-laner Galen and typed on the screen, "Brothers, lie down, my Galen is a very talented guy." After typing, Lin Hai coquettishly lit a cigarette, waved the puff of smoke in front of his eyes with his hand, then took a photo with the screen, wiped his hair lightly, and sighed, "It's true. Handsome." Just as he was enjoying himself, Lin Hai suddenly found that there were 3 people on the opposite side who ignored his Galen. The soldiers didn't even go out. So they just dismantled their own defense tower. Lin Hai said angrily, "What a daring dog, can you treat me like a big Galen as a statue?" So, Lin Hai used his hand speed that he shouldn't have at this age, quickly clicked E, rotate. 3 kills. Ha ha ha. Lin Hai was so excited that he couldn't help but murmured, 3 kills now. He is so handsome and skilled. After returning to the city, Lin Hai took a puff of his cigarette proudly, and then bought 2 Dolan swords, 5 bottles of medicine. When you go out to Sanjolan, there are vegetables on the opposite side. At this time, an unusual thunder flashed in the sky outside, and Lin Hai, who was playing games in the internet cafe, suddenly lost consciousness. There was a young man sitting on the toilet seat of a toilet. He looked very sunny. It was Lin Hai who was playing games before. After waking up, Lin Hai was confused. Wasn't he playing League of Legends? What's going on now? Ding, the host's consciousness has been detected and the coquettish system is being bound. Lin Hai was very sure that the voice came from his mind, the system. Lin Hai is familiar with this. It's not like he has never read time travel novels. So, you are about to be the protagonist. Lin Hai was overjoyed and exclaimed, "Woohoo, take off." Ding, the coquettish system has been successfully bound. Congratulations to the host for coming to the anime One Piece world. It is currently 1519 in the Hainan calendar, which is the year before the protagonist of this world, Monkey D. Luffy, went to sea. This is the Shampoo Islands. Ding, the gift package for newbies is being distributed. The gift package has been distributed to the space backpack, and the host can check it with his consciousness. After receiving the message and waiting for a while, Lin Hai quickly communicated with his thoughts, "System, you are so humane. I want to give you a 5-star rating, but why do you call it coquettish system? Coquettish is not specifically used to describe beautiful women." Really? Remember, you are just a system, not a beauty. Feng Saw system. Host, this system is called Feng Saw system and rejects your question. Lin Hai said with a smile, "You have personality, I like it." Quickly open the novice gift package. There is a devil fruit, a knife, and a pill in the space backpack. The elixir improves physical fitness, and the devil fruit is called the space fruit and has no side effects, that is, it is not affected by the sea tower stone and sea water. Lin Hai shouted in surprise, "Feng Saw system, I love you to death, 5 stars, you must be 5 stars. Without saying a word, Lin Hai ate the elixir first, and then the space fruit as well. Grumbling. Lin Hai was excited and said full of doubts, "System, this space fruit is indeed delicious. It has a unique fragrance of fresh fruit and is also sweet. But why do I feel like I have taken laxatives?" Coquettish system, the host just took that pill and is currently in the process of detoxification. How could Lin Hai have time to listen to the explanation? He quickly opened the toilet seat. I don't know how long it took, but Lin Hai found that he was in big trouble. There are no tissues. Lin Hai quickly communicated with the system, can you provide wipes here? Feng Saw system, the host's Feng Saw coin is 0.1 and cannot be redeemed. Lin Hai had black lines all over his head. After careful consideration, Lin Hai had no choice but to take off the underwear he bought from Pinduoduo, finally comfortable. Looking at the underwear that had been in the trash can for a long time, Lin Hai said distressedly, Feng Saw system, open my personal panel. Lin Hai still needs to get familiar with the system, otherwise what should he do if he gets embarrassed? Isn't this an opportunity for readers to complain? Soon, Lin Hai's personal information appeared in front of Lin Hai in the form of a panel that no one else could see except Lin Hai. Host, Lin Hai, power, 100. Agility, 10. Stamina, 250. Coquettish coin, 0.1. Space backpack, knife, sword. Because the host does not meet the requirements, the system store will not display it. After reading my personal information, it is easy to understand strength and stamina. I can currently exert 100 kilograms of strength, and agility is the highest speed, 10 meters per second. After reading the information, Lin Hai said that the reward was too small, so Lin Hai tentatively picked up the system. Lin Hai said, system, before time travel, when I was in school, I heard that many classmates' mobile phone screens were shattered because they were shattered by the residual power of the white-bearded old man's fist while watching One Piece. You see, the combat power in this world is really abnormal. You should give me more life-saving skills, or improve my attribute values. Coquettish system, host, please don't have too many illusions. This system is only an assistant. You still need to rely on yourself for many things. Lin Hai said disappointedly, okay then, may I ask why there is no description of domineering in my panel? Coquettish system, host, if you hadn't eaten that pill and devil fruit, you would still be a scumbag, and your domineering power would still be far away from you. As for the coquettish coins, based on your performance in a certain event, the system will determine how many coquettish coins and attribute rewards you will be given. How to operate, explore by yourself, the host can be named according to the system. It's interesting, I like it. Lin Hai's mentality adjustment was still very good. Since he didn't forget it, although he didn't win anything from the system, Lin Hai was still very satisfied with his current situation. For example, Lin Hai already knew how to use his space fruit ability and basic information. It was very similar to Trafalgar Luo's surgery fruit ability. It opened a space field in which Lin Fan could freely manipulate objects inside. However, there are still many differences between space fruits and surgical fruits. Space fruits have no healing function. If Lin Hai took a knife and cut it, then that person would really die. Before Lin Hai could continue exploring, Lin Hai was awakened by the sound of walking outside. Only then did Lin Hai realize that he was stupid. He was overly surprised and stayed in the toilet smelling something that a handsome guy shouldn't smell. When Lin Hai pushed open the toilet door, he saw a face that needed a beating, a bubble wrapped around his head, and a runny nose. The author doesn't know the golden 3 chapters, but I think the rest of it is quite interesting. If you don't laugh, I'll let you do whatever you want. Don't take it seriously. Chapter 2. After beating the celestial dragon, he got on the warship by mistake. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Looking at the guy who wraps himself so tightly in front of him, isn't he hot? Also, this is a face that deserves a beating, with such a thick beard and a runny nose. Pooh, the first impression that flashed through Lin Hai's mind was that of an imbecile. Or maybe he is mentally retarded. The guy with the runny nose is the celestial dragon of this world. He is called the descendant of the creator god and enjoys supreme rights. His name is Charo Saint, and he is the guy who was beaten up by Straw Hat Luffy a year later, but at this time, St. Charles Rose saw the person in front of him seeing him, and dared to stand in front of him blatantly. Not only did he not kneel down, but the way that guy looked at him made St. Charles Rose feel greatly affected. What an insult! After reacting, St. Charles was incredibly angry and said, You are a low-level servant and a pariah. Why don't you kneel down when you see me? I'm going to take you to feed me yesterday. Pets bought from auction. Damn, what the hell? Lin Hai became angry and slapped St. Charles in the face. what Lin Hai didn't expect was that after being slapped with a palm, this guy hit the wall and fainted. Lin Hai came back to his senses and suddenly thought, isn't this the Tianlong people? No wonder he is so arrogant, but looking at the fainted guy, Lin Hai couldn't help but think that he had to run away immediately, because in the world of pirates, the consequences of beating a Tianlong are very serious. Soon, the Navy headquarters will send a general over, and Lin Hai is not stupid enough to escape from their pursuit. Lin Hai, who had just taken a few steps, stopped. There should be Tianlong guards outside, right? Now except this imbecile, no one else knows when he sees his face, so run away quickly. The desire to survive made Lin Hai quickly think of a way, space fruit. Open 1, Ba. Lin Hai, who walked back, spit a mouthful of thick phlegm into St. Charles' face, and then chose to run away. After all, if you don't spit it out after all, how can you deal with such a handsome yourself and such a kind and handsome reader? Space field. A circular bubble expanded from the palm of Lin Fan's hand, wrapping the wall of the bathroom inside. Then with a space exchange, Lin Hai arrived at the outside of the bathroom. Then, Lin Hai began his escape. After coming out, Lin Hai quickly walked towards the coast. After all, when the Navy finds out that St. Charles was beaten, the Navy will definitely block the Chambord Islands. If Lin Hai's face is recognized by that imbecile, it will be fun. Trying to avoid the crowds, after running for a while, Lin Hai discovered that the woman walking not far away to the Shampoo Islands should be Boya Hancock. She was hailed by the world as the most beautiful woman in the world. She was extremely powerful and the most beautiful woman in the Shichibukai. One of them, Lin Hai knows her past, and with her temper, she will definitely run into trouble later, because if the island is blocked, will Hancock listen to the Navy and accept the search obediently? Lin Hai felt it was necessary to remind this beauty. Hancock and the two younger sisters beside her looked at Lin Hai, who was running towards this side with confusion. Lin Hai did not pay attention to their doubts, but said, I just knocked out a Tianlong man. This island will wait for a while. It's blocked, don't go in, leave quickly. After saying this in one breath, Lin Fan ran directly to the coast. After listening to Lin Hai's words, Hancock and her two sisters first felt fear, and then they couldn't believe it. Is there anyone in this world who dares to fight the Tianlong people? After a long pause, Hancock stuttered, that man just said. A woman with green hair reacted and said, Sister, don't worry about this for now. Let's set sail quickly. We can't stay here any longer. Hancock was dragged away by her two sisters while she was still in a daze. Lin Hai, who ran to the coast, quickly used his abilities to board a large ship that had just sailed. However, this big ship is very extraordinary, it is a warship. There is also a naval flag with a dog's head hanging above the warship. Vice Admiral Garp, who was on the ship's deck, was chatting with Admiral Akiji, when both of them noticed that someone was on board. How brave! When the sailors saw Garp dispatched, everyone consciously took their positions and did their own thing. Garp was very curious and walked to the place where Lin Hai landed and asked, Boy, who are you? How did you get on my boat? Lin Hai shed a drop of sweat on his forehead. Lin Hai knew this Kaputa. But Lin Hai soon calmed down, because Garp had no idea that he had beaten the Tianlong people, and he, Garp, was a just and not extreme person. Lin Hai replied, Me? My name is Sleeping God. I was chased by human traffickers, so I hid here in a panic. God of sleep. God. Garp looked at Lin Hai with dangerous eyes. You can't blame Lin Hai. Lin Hai's friends used to call him that. After all, when he was in school, the teacher was lecturing and he fell asleep, and had a dream. He dreamed that the teacher was spreading, a drop of cold sweat dripped from Lin Hai's forehead. Lin Hai quickly explained, My name is Hua Xia Di Lin Hai. China's Lin Hai, is there nothing wrong with it? D. Garp cursed in his mind, he had encountered a troublesome guy today. Because Garp understands that people with the surname D are basically not simple. At this time, Lin Hai waved his hand and said, None of this matters, just call me Lin Hai, Lieutenant General Garp. Garp was stunned. No ordinary guy would be trembling when he saw him. This guy in front of him was so unceremonious. No, Lin Hai casually walked to the board of the ship and said, "Lieutenant General Garp, can you give me a glass of water? I was chased all the way just now, and I'm dying of thirst." General Akiji, who was lying on the chair, had his cheeks darkened. "Someone as big as himself is here, didn't you see? Also, that drink is mine." It's not like Lin Hai has never watched anime before. It's not like he doesn't understand the characters of these two people. As long as Lin Hai is casual and doesn't cheat or shout about becoming a pirate or say some bad thoughts, he will definitely no problem. Qingji took off his blindfold and sat up and said, "Ah la la, I said this little brother, shouldn't he ask the owner for his opinion before drinking?" Lin Hai took another sip with satisfaction and asked, "General Qingji, a man like you wouldn't be so stingy, right? Besides, I drank it all, and if I return it to you, you won't drink it again, right? Instead of asking whether you ask or not, I want to drink, so why bother asking?" Qing Pheasant was first given a high hat by Lin Hai, and then he was confused by Lin Hai. What kind of messed up logic? Ouch, where are the manners? Ha ha ha. Garp, who was coming over, couldn't help but laugh. He sat next to Lin Hai, then patted Lin Hai on the shoulder and said, "Boy, come and be a navy." "And, you, how did you get on the ship just now?" Chapter 3, Awakening the Overlord Color and Dominance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Hiss. Lin Hai took a breath and exclaimed, "Old man, be gentle, do you want to slap me to death?" Garp picked his nose. "Ah, don't worry about those details. You haven't answered my question yet. How did you suddenly appear on my ship?" Lin Hai said contemptuously. "What an ignorant old man, do you know about devil fruit?" Garp and Aoji suddenly became interested, and Aoji couldn't help but ask, "Can you tell us what abilities you have acquired?" Lin Hai said casually, "It should have something to do with space." "I don't know." Qingji muttered, "You seem to have gained incredible abilities." "Ah." After reacting, Garp patted Lin Hai's shoulder again and said, "Boy, come and become a navy." Lin Fan shook his head like a rattle and said, "Become a navy? Are you kidding me? There is no way I will be a navy. I will never be a navy in this life. If you join the navy, it would be fun if you were discovered by the dragon people." However, when Lin Hai's words fell into the ears of Garp and Qingji, the result was different. Garp looked at Lin Hai dangerously and said, "Are you going to be a pirate?" Lin Hai was stunned for a moment and said disdainfully, "Old man Garp, are all the people in this world pigs?" Garp nodded, "Isn't it?" Qing Pheasant and Lin Hai on one side, as well as the eavesdropping naval soldiers, all looked at Garp. Strangely, after reacting, Garp became angry and said, "Anyway, you have to tell me why you don't want to be in the navy, otherwise I will put you on the list of dangerous people." Seeing this, Lin Hai had no choice but to say, "If I tell you, don't hit me." "You said." Lin Fan stood up, looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle, and said slowly, "I think the so-called justice of your navy is too blind." Qingji asked curiously, "Ah la la, why do you say that?" Lin Hai explained, "You are shouting justice every day, but it is nothing more than that the pirates must be eliminated, right?" Garp asked, "Isn't it right?" Lin Fan said with a smile, "Have you never doubted yourselves? In your opinion, pirates are the enemies of the navy. As long as they are pirates, they are doing evil, but have you ever thought about why there are so many pirates? Excluding those who do evil, there must be some who are forcibly defined as pirates by you, right? Of course it's for some purpose. Not to mention these, there are still some simple adventurers who have done no evil, but you will not let them go. What can they do? In this regard, your so-called justice obviously has many mistakes. Even in your navy, there are many people who do not act according to the rules set by the navy and execute them privately based on their preferences, right?" For a moment, everyone on the warship remained silent. For example, in the navy, Admiral Akainu Sakaski is a typical representative. Lin Hai's words were deafening, and each word penetrated everyone's heart, solving the confusion in many people's hearts. However, after solving the confusion, new problems emerged, like Akiji and Garp. Fortunately, these problems did exist, but ordinary Navy began to doubt those who were in the name of justice. After a while, Shinji said, "What you said is indeed true now, but can't we correct it?" Lin Hai looked at Shinji and said, "Mr. Shinji, do you know? Many people have their own firm beliefs and inextricable interests. If you suddenly do this, the Navy may be divided. Do you understand? Let's talk about the Shichibukai system. The world government is just here to make fun of it, while letting the Navy enforce justice and eliminate pirates. While wooing pirates, the name, is really ridiculous." Looking at the group of people who remained silent, Lin Hai continued, "Have you seen the phenomenon on the Shampoo Islands? Human trafficking. Who can tell me that this kind of thing is legitimately placed next to the Navy headquarters? Don't you think it's ridiculous, that when I was watching anime in the past, I was indignant about these things?" As Lin Hai talked more and more, he became more and more enthusiastic. "Also, haven't you seen those Tianlong people? Every time they walk on the street, they want those civilians kneel down to greet them, and even the Tianlong people will snatch them home if they like someone." At this time, the coquettish system prompted, "Congratulations to the host for forming his own belief and activating the Overlord's domineering energy." While Lin Hai was immersed in his passionate speech, he didn't notice the system's prompt. Suddenly, Lin Hai said, "Can human life and freedom be trampled on so casually?" After finishing speaking, an indescribable energy spurted out from Lin Hai's body, a stream of light blue air instantly enveloped the entire ship, and everyone froze there. Then, as if they had encountered something frightening, many sailors sweated profusely on their foreheads, then their eyes turned white, and they fainted on the ground one after another. Shinji and Garp, who were closest to Lin Hai, felt it most clearly. Garp looked at Lin Hai with wide eyes, while Shinji broke out a few drops of cold sweat. It was because he was shocked, because what Lin Hai said is the ultimate question that many people in this world pursue throughout their lives. After a while, Aoki Pheasant, who came back to his senses, couldn't help but murmured, Hey, it's real or not, Mr. Garp, what he released just now was the Overlord's domineering energy, right?" Garp nodded and said, "Ah, this is indeed domineering. It's so amazing. Boy, you are really surprising." Lin Fan scratched his head in embarrassment and said, "Well, they fainted. I'll wake them up, otherwise the ship will go somewhere else." Garp and Shinji looked at Lin Hai leaving, and Shinji asked, "Mr. Garp, will he become an enemy of the Navy?" Garp shook his head and said, "Probably not. From his words, I can feel his concept of true justice. No matter how bad a person like this is, he can't be bad. It's just a pity." Shinji remained silent. The current situation of the Navy really could not attract Lin Hai to join. However, following Lin Hai's words just now, the two of them couldn't help but think, in this case, do they still need to persist? After the two of them looked at each other, Garp understood what Akiji was thinking, so he said, "Wouldn't you know if I ask him later?" Shinji nodded and said, "Yes, Mr. Garp." Lin Hai, who walked to the side, broke out in a cold sweat. He seemed to have over-pretended just now, but it was really cool to pretend to compete in front of Garp and Ching Pheasant. After a while, Lin Hai quickly called up the system page, Host, Lin Hai, Power, 100. Agility, 10. Stamina, 250. Overlord Color Domineering, LV1, shocks the opponent, can be released freely, but cannot be controlled. It can also be used for entanglement attacks, and currently does not have the ability to entangle. Coquettish Coin, 0.1. Space Backpack, Knife, Sword. After taking care of his panel, Lin Hai secretly looked at the interface attributes of Garp and Akiji, and the result was full of question marks. Later, after waking up the unconscious sailors, Garp shouted, "Boy, come here." Lin Hai felt uncomfortable in his heart. If this old man insisted on forcing him to become a Navy, even if you don't want to join the Navy, you might as well go to sea with Straw Hat Luffy. After all, when I first watched One Piece, the scenery and beautiful women, in short, it is much more enjoyable to play freely on the sea than to fight for justice. It's a rare time to travel through time, so let's leave the saints and heroes to others. Chapter 5 First Encounter with Straw Hat. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next day, Lin Hai, who was sleeping soundly, was awakened by the sound outside. When he walked out, he saw Garp and Ching Pheasant there. Lin Hai yawned. Ah, it's another day when I wake up to my own handsomeness. I'm so handsome. It's really annoying. Coquettish system, ding, congratulations to the host for completing a coquettish operation, free attributes plus 40. Coquettish coins plus 400. Lin Hai suddenly woke up and shouted to himself, as high as the sky is, I will be as sexy as I can be. Ignoring the black lines on the faces of the people next to him, Lin Hai continued, why are you looking at me like this? It's not my fault that I'm handsome, what can I do? I'm also troubled, okay. Coquettish system, ding, congratulations to the host for completing a coquettish operation, free attributes plus 40. Coquettish coins plus 400. Garp on the side tried his best to restrain his ready-to-move fists, while Akiji was feeling cold and had to get off the boat later. This little bastard really needed a beating, and he even beat him Akiji for 250 Baileys yesterday. Look at him. With such damage, you will definitely have no money to repay yourself. On one side, Lin Hai struck twice in a row, and he was immediately overjoyed, so he kept saying, Mr. Carp, Mr. Ching Pheasant, I am so handsome, if I am seen by others, will it arouse jealousy and then be beaten? Bar. In my hometown, a reader was chased and killed for 3 days and 3 nights because he was too handsome. It was really scary. Also, a reader was so handsome that he was so fascinated by those little girls that he forgot to look at the road and almost hit a telephone pole. So that reader was called in. Oops, this world is too dangerous. It turns out that being handsome is also a sin. Coquettish system, ding, congratulations to the host for showing off to the sky, with 3 consecutive critical hits, free attributes plus 120, and coquettish coins plus 1,200. Before Lin Hai could be happy, Garp and Ching Pheasant couldn't stand it anymore. Duong, duong. Lin Hai was punched by Garp and Chingji respectively. Garp blew out 2 streams of hot air from his nostrils and said angrily, what's wrong with this kid? He deserves a beating so early in the morning. Ching Pheasant said, ah la la, Mr. Carp, I'm going to say goodbye to you right here. Anyway, we were almost at our destination. Aoki Pheasant quickly took out his bicycle and used his frozen fruit to drive the bicycle from the sea. Garp waved his hand and ignored Lin Hai who was lying on the board of the boat. He leaned on the chair and drank tea. Lin Hai happily called up the panel, host, Lin Hai, strength, 150, 100 plus 50, agility, 100, 10 plus 90, physical strength, 400, 300 plus 100, Overlord color domineering, LV1, shocks the opponent, can be released freely, but cannot be controlled. It can also be used for entanglement attacks, and currently does not have the ability to entangle. Coquettish coin, 2650.1. Space backpack, knife, sword. After Lin Hai distributed the data, he suddenly felt that his body was the same. Running from the 1st floor to the 5th floor, my waist is not sore and I am not out of breath. After a while, Garp saw Lin Hai lying there all the time. I didn't use much strength just now. So, Garp asked tentatively, hey, it's just a fist, it's not that serious, right? Lin Hai stood up instantly and said, what can happen to me? Where is General Ching Pheasant? Garp picked his nose and said casually, he went to do something. Lin Hai asked, are we going to your hometown? Where is it? Garp replied, we are almost there, Dong Hai, Windmill Village. Lin Hai tentatively checked Garp's data panel, but it was still full of question marks. There was indeed a huge gap. Originally, Lin Hai wanted to brush up some attributes, but was the coquettish value so easy to brush up? This thing is mainly about inspiration. I have no inspiration, I can't be sexy no matter how I do it. I don't know how long it took before the warship sailed into the harbor of Windmill Village. Lin Hai, who was following Garp, couldn't help but complain, old Garp, after all, you are also a lieutenant general in the Navy headquarters. You are a quite famous figure, but your hometown is in such a mountainous place. Look, what do others think we are doing here? Our hometown is still in the mountains. Are we afraid that our enemies will come to visit us? What a shame. Garp turned his head with black lines on his head and said, "What, do you have any objections?" "Hey!" Lin Hai muttered, "I only have 250 Baileys with me, and you bastard took away Baileys. Wouldn't your conscience hurt?" "Ahahaha." Garp changed his face and said, "Don't worry about those small details, Lin Hai. I will introduce you to my grandson later, Monkey D. Luffy. You must be very good at it. Let's talk." Lin Hai had no choice but to continue walking behind this shameless guy. He couldn't beat him again and again. What could he do? Those 200 Baileys, it's not Lin Hai, because the Feng Saw coins in the Feng Saw system are only numbers for the time being. The system requires the data panel to reach a certain level before opening the system store. After a while, I saw a house. Garp stepped forward and knocked on the door, but when there was no response, Garp knocked more vigorously. Suddenly, there was a loud voice in the room, "Which bastard is interrupting my nap?" Garp said with a black face, "It's me, do you have any objections?" That when Dayton opened the door, he saw Garp, and sweat suddenly broke out on his forehead. "Mr. Garp, why do you have time to come here?" Luffy on the other side just came back and immediately shouted, "Grandpa, why are you here?" That when Garp was about to speak, Lin Hai had already spoken. Lin Hai pointed at Dayton and said, "Who is this fat woman? Is she the mother of that bastard in the straw hat?" Dayton turned to Lin Hai angrily and said, "Kid, what did you say?" Lin Hai said with a smile, "Well, you are a normal person. If I say this to you, you will be angry. It's not like that stinky old man Garp. When you scold him, you still look indifferent. It's really hopeless." Duong. Garp blew out 2 bursts of hot air from his nostrils. "I don't know why Lin Hai, a brat like him, deserves a beating so much. Why don't you just take his 200 Baileys to buy snacks? That's what you said about yourself." Pfft. Luffy on the other side was rolling on the ground holding his stomach. "Ha ha ha, who is that? It's so interesting. Hey, Duong." Garp dodged and hit Luffy directly. Luffy cried out in pain, "Grandpa, why did you hit me? I didn't blame you." Ignoring Luffy's complaints, Garp sighed and said, "Dayton, is there any food?" "I'm hungry." Dayton retorted, "What time is it now? I still have food to eat. I can go to the village to eat by myself." "Hey." Garp looked at Lin Hai depressedly and said, "You brat, come over here and I'll introduce you to him." Dayton exclaimed, "Garp, is this your grandson again? Do you really think this is a nursery? Stop it, you bastard." Lin Hai said with a smile, "Is there anything wrong with your eyes? I am so handsome, I will be that old and crooked grandson. Just go and have fun." Duong. Garp violently carried Lin Hai and threw him to Luffy and said, "Okay, you two introduce yourself, I'm going back." Luffy said in surprise, "Really? That's great." Duong. Garp hammered Luffy and said angrily, "Seeing that your grandfather is leaving, shouldn't you be reluctant to leave? You are actually so happy that you want me to leave. Is this the attitude of a grandson towards his grandfather?" Luffy covered his head and shouted, "I'm sorry, Grandpa, walk slowly." Garp was very satisfied and said, "You two should get along well." Dayton looked at Garp's back and didn't even dare to fart. This old man was too scary, especially the fist, it was too painful. Soon, Dayton said to Lin Hai and Luffy outside, "You two bastards can find your own food. Don't disturb my sleep." Boom. The door is now closed. Lin Hai and Luffy looked at each other and blinked. Lin Hai said, "My name is Lin Hai, what's your name?" Chapter 6 Let's take an adventure together. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Luffy smiled brightly and said, "My name is." Lin Hai interrupted, "Monkey D. Luffy, right? Who doesn't know? Hurry up, I'll starve to death." Luffy was stunned for a while and said in a funny voice, "You are really interesting. Come on, I'll treat you to a big dinner. Lin Hai's eyes flashed and he said, you are such a good person. Ha ha ha. Luffy said cheerfully, don't worry about it. The two walked for a while, and Luffy asked doubtfully, are you my grandfather's grandson too? Lin Hai was stunned for a moment and said in a bad way, yes, that's why you have to call me brother. Luffy's face was filled with questions. Why? Lin Hai explained, I am 19 years old, what about you? Luffy, I'm 16. Lin Hai nodded and said, that's right, I'm older than you. Luffy nodded and said, that's it. The two of them were walking and chatting, and Lin Hai brought up Luffy's data panel. Monkey D, Luffy, the protagonist of One Piece World Power, 1600. Agility, 150. Stamina, 3000. Devil Fruit, Rubber Fruit, Animal Phantom Species. Human Fruit. Nika Form, possessing the fate of the protagonist, he has great potential, he becomes stronger when encountering strength, and he can turn misfortune into good fortune. Seeing Luffy's attribute panel, Lin Hai called him good guy. Looking at his own data panel, Lin Hai suddenly felt bad. After walking for a while, Lin Hai couldn't help but ask, you said you were going to treat me to a big meal. Could it be that you were taking me into the forest to hunt? Luffy nodded and said, yes, Lin Hai, let me tell you, that bear meat is the most delicious, and that tiger meat, and... Lin Hai quickly jumped to the side and reminded, can you wipe off your saliva? Do you want to drown the ants on the ground? And you said that if you treat me to dinner, shouldn't you go to a restaurant? Do you want me to go hunting by myself? It's really unreasonable. Luffy's expression was solemn, look there. I saw a huge bear walking over, Luffy said with a solemn expression, this guy is difficult to deal with. Lin Hai stepped forward and said, Luffy, watch and let me show you my power without using your hands. Luffy was full of doubts, but still warned, danger, that big bear is very durable. Before he finished speaking, Lin Hai had already activated his Overlord color domineering energy. After all, how could he become familiar with this kind of power if he didn't release it? Suddenly, a stream of light blue air enveloped the area, and Lin Hai's focus was on the big bear. The big bear was stunned for a moment, sweating profusely, then his eyes turned white, and then he fainted. Luffy on the other side had a few drops of sweat on his forehead and couldn't help but say, this is similar to the momentum of Shanks and Grandpa. Sigao E, nah, Lin Hai, how did you do it? Please teach me. Lin Hai reached out and pressed down, and then said, eat first, and then talk about other things. After the two of them finished eating, Lin Hai had dark lines on his face and said very dissatisfied, I only ate a little bit of meat, but you actually ate everything else. Where is our next meal? Luffy said casually, it's delicious. Don't worry about it. Just make it next time. Knowing Luffy's appetite, Lin Hai no longer struggled, after all, they were all eaten. As the two of them lay aside to rest, Lin Hai secretly decided that Luffy's eating trick was very similar to returning life. He must learn it in the future, but the most important thing now is to train his body first, otherwise this data attribute will it's hard to go far. Lin Hai, who was deep in thought, was suddenly interrupted by Luffy's words. Luffy said, Lin Hai, I will go to sea next year, what about you? Lin Hai asked, going to sea? Luffy said, well, I once made an agreement with a man. I will go to sea to become the Pirate King, and then return this hat to him. Now, will you go to sea with me? Lin Hai said, going to sea with you? Will I be the captain? Luffy quickly refused, no, I must be the captain. Lin Hai asked, then what should I do? Luffy thought for a moment and said in surprise, you will be the deputy captain. Lin Hai waved his hand and said, it doesn't matter anything. Since you invited me, let's go to sea together and have a wonderful adventure together. Luffy nodded and said, what an exciting adventure. Ha ha ha, I'm so looking forward to it. I really hope time passes faster. Ace has been at sea for 2 years, and I don't know how he is doing. Lin Hai interrupted Luffy's emotion and said quickly, Luffy, your current fighting level is not good, and neither am I. We still have to practice for a while. Luffy refused, you bastard, how dare you underestimate me? Lin Hai waved his hand and said, don't you want to be the pirate king? If your fighting skills are so good, why do you only get beaten when you meet your grandfather? Also, since you are a rubber man, it stands to reason that if you are hit, it won't hurt, but will it hurt if your grandpa hits you? Luffy, why? Lin Hai explained, that's because of domineering. There are 3 types of domineering. The first type, Overlord color domineering, is what I released just now, and you also felt it. The second type is the haki of seeing and hearing, which is used to predict the opponent's next move. If you don't know this power, then if we meet someone who has the haki of seeing and hearing, we will only get beaten. The third type is armed haki. Armed haki can be attached to any part of the body or weapons to increase attack and defense power. If someone hits you and it hurts, that's because you are using your armed domineering energy. Do you understand? As for the more advanced usage, I won't go into details. First, train your body well. That is the foundation of everything. Luffy was sweating profusely on his forehead and said excitedly, Segway, so that's it. Then when can I learn that kind of power? Lin Hai shook his head and said, I'm not very sure. It should be that the body's strength reaches a certain level or it can be awakened when encountering special things. If you want to be the pirate king, you must first understand these powers. Maybe you will master them someday. Let's not talk about this for now. I'll start practicing because I'm very weak now. Luffy asked doubtfully, are you still weak? I think you are strong. Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, stop talking nonsense and practice hard. Ever since, Lin Hai started doing sit-ups, squats, frog jumps. Luffy on the side said with disgust, what is this? Can this improve fighting power? Lin Hai said with a smile, whether it works or not, we will know later, right? After practicing for a while, Lin Hai took out the knife from his space backpack. This knife was very similar to Sauron's sword in Dao Yiwen. It was all white, simple and low-key, and it was very easy to hold in his hand. So far, this knife has not been named, but Lin Hai decided to name it Gao Feng, helpless. Lin Hai racked his brains and couldn't think of a good name, so he had to come up with a random name. Luffy on the side noticed that a knife suddenly appeared in Lin Hai's hand, and couldn't help but asked curiously, Lin Hai, how did you do this? Lin Hai said with a smile, I am an ability user who ate the space fruit. I have a space backpack, and this knife was taken out from it. Luffy's eyes lit up and he said, it's so fun. Can you take me into that space backpack to play for a while? Lin Hai said speechlessly, living creatures can't get in. Luffy said in disgust, what, the space fruit is really rubbish. Lin Hai, just be jealous, you are optimistic about Luffy. Space field. A circular membrane continued to expand from Lin Hai's hand, encompassing the big tree opposite. One knife flow. Cut the cake. A flash of white light flashed, and the big tree opposite was cut into 2 pieces. Lin Hai turned to look at Luffy, raised his eyebrows and said, how? Sugao, can you do it again? It's so cool. To explain, the surgery fruit controls objects in the ability field, and the space fruit controls space. Don't confuse them, although both have cutting abilities. Of course, ability development is based on the protagonist's experience and is not randomly added to the protagonist. For example, at present, the protagonist has not left the East China Sea, so his abilities naturally do not exist that much. The abilities everyone suggested, such as Kamui and Shinra Tianzheng, have different power systems. There will be explanations later. It shows that these are mainly because they are afraid of being sprayed. Also, there are differences between the energy systems of the second dimension and those of cultivation, immortality, and other 2 dimensions. If they are mixed together, they will appear very messy, and the power system will also collapse. In the early stage, it was mainly about comedy. Some people thought that the space fruit was too weak. In fact, it was not the case. For a master, the space swap alone was already abnormal enough. Chapter 7 Cultivation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A few days later, in the forest, Lin Hai said disgustedly, this barbecue is too unpalatable without ingredients. Luffy said with a smile, what can I do, Lin Hai, do you know? Ever since Ace went to sea, I have been living alone in the forest. It is really too lonely, but luckily you are here, ha ha ha, it feels so good to suddenly have someone to chat with. Lin Hai said, yes, it is indeed too lonely to be alone in this deep mountain, but soon we will be able to ride on the sea. By the way, why do you have to be the pirate king? Is it just for an agreement? Luffy shook his head and said, a promise is a promise. It is my own wish to be the pirate king, and it is also Ace's wish. We must be the freest people on this sea, the freest person. Lin Hai couldn't help but sigh, everything in the world is a unity of opposites, how can absolute freedom come from? Coquettish system, ding, congratulations to the host for realizing the truth. The domineering spirit has been increased by 1 level. Lin Hai quickly called up the personal information interface, host, Lin Hai, strength, 300, 150 plus 150, agility, 110, 100 plus 10, physical strength, 500, 400 plus 100, Overlord color domineering, LV2, shock the opponent, can control the release freely. For those with weak will, it will be stunned directly. Coquettish coin, 3000.1. Space backpack, knife, sword, alias, Gao Feng. Lin Hai couldn't help but sigh after seeing his message. This progress is really great. Lin Hai stood up in a good mood, and Luffy asked doubtfully, what's wrong? Lin Hai said, want to eat something delicious? Luffy instantly became energetic and said excitedly, of course I do. Lin Hai said, come with me to the opposite side of the garbage dump. Let's have a good meal there. Luffy wondered, the things there are so expensive. Do you have Bailey? Lin Hai said contemptuously, have you forgotten my ability? Luffy immediately objected, Lin Hai, I didn't expect you to be this kind of person. Lin Hai looked at Luffy with fishy eyes and said directly, I'm just asking you if you want to eat. Ah ha ha ha. Luffy said awkwardly, don't be so serious. Isn't it okay for me to go? Lin Hai said, since you want to be my captain, I have agreed, Luffy, to know when to joke and when not to joke. When we go to sea in the future, every decision we make may involve the lives of our companions. Do you understand? Luffy, who had been smiling playfully just now, suddenly became extremely serious. Luffy pressed his hat and nodded, I understand, thank you for reminding me. Lin Hai knew that Luffy was a man of great wisdom, but he was too fond of doing things. Otherwise, how could there have been so many accidents that allowed the Straw Hat Pirates to turn danger into disaster? Lin Hai was in a good mood and immediately hooked up with Luffy. Lin Hai asked, Luffy, are you interested in beautiful women? Luffy thought for a while and said, I think I have a goal, so I shouldn't be distracted. Lin Hai nodded and said, what a great ambition. This way I don't have to worry about you snatching women from me in the future. Luffy, Nani. Ha ha ha. Lin Hai said with a smile, don't worry about this, let's go have a big dinner, but don't make trouble for me, it will cause big trouble, do you understand? Luffy asked, should we bring some back to Dayton and the others? Lin Hai said disdainfully, with your appetite, will you take it? Luffy vowed, no, ha ha ha. Although they said they would not bring food, Lin Hai and Luffy still brought some back. Bang bang bang. Suddenly there were shouts and curses in the room, which bastard came to disturb my rest again? When Dayton opened the door, he saw Lin Hai and Luffy standing at the door. Dayton asked doubtfully, what do you two brats want to do? Before Luffy could answer, Lin Hai retorted, it's almost dark now, and you're still resting. I'm really surprised that the bandits thought you were like you and didn't starve to death. Dayton said angrily, you kid. Lin Hai directly handed the food in the bag to Dayton and said, eat quickly, let's go. Luffy stepped forward and said, ha ha ha, Dayton, eat quickly, this is the kitchen we got from those nobles. Lin Hai quickly covered Luffy's mouth, threw the food to Dayton, and then dragged Luffy away. Lin Hai said loudly, didn't you promise me not to tell others about this? Luffy, aha. Lin Hai nodded and said, not even Dayton, okay, let's go. Luffy, aha. Dayton on the other side had black lines all over his head. How did that bastard Lin Hai understand what Luffy said? Moreover, they actually went to the nobles and came back without any problems. As expected, everyone Garp brought back were monsters. The next day, somewhere in the forest, after Lin Hai and Luffy fought for a while, although Lin Hai still couldn't beat Luffy, he was definitely better than Luffy in terms of skills. After all, Lin Hai is a time traveler. He has seen the unique moves of various characters in the anime One Piece, as well as his insights from the 21st century. Lin Hai said, "Luffy, you are wasting your energy in many places, you know. You have to understand that in addition to fighting skills, remember, you are rubber. You need to make use of the properties of rubber. Also, when you fight, you must be careful of the opponent's decisive blow, otherwise you will suffer a lot if you are hit." Luffy was full of doubts. Seeing that Luffy still looked like he had never seen the world, Lin Hai picked up a wooden stick and said, "Shall we try again?" Seeing the road, Lin Fan was eager to try, and Lin Fan immediately made a decisive kill. Space field. A circular membrane continued to expand from Lin Hai's hand, instantly including Luffy. Luffy knew that Lin Hai was not simple. When he was about to take action, he suddenly found that a wooden stick had hit him in the stomach. Luffy was directly photographed aside by Lin Hai, and Luffy said angrily, "Damn." Luffy wanted to take action, but Lin Hai stopped him and said, "Wait a minute, have you seen the move I just used?" Luffy calmed down and said angrily, "I won't lose to you again." Lin Hai's head hurt and he said, "We are not fighting for victory or defeat. Just stop it, you bastard. Think about it for yourself. If I had a knife in my hand just now, what do you think you would do?" Only then did Luffy realize the seriousness of what had just happened, but he still said, "Aren't you too much of a fool with your ability?" Lin Hai said with a smile, "After going to sea, there is only a battle of life and death, there is no cheating." Luffy carefully recalled the moment just now, and Luffy asked, "My position seemed to have changed just now?" Lin Hai nodded and said, "I changed your position just now, and it happened to be where I hit you with the stick." Luffy said depressedly, "You seem to have no solution." Lin Hai shook his head and said, "No, people who are aware of my abilities and react quickly enough can block it if they are experienced in combat. There are also people who meet Wen's haki and can block it. So, there are many things that we can't think of." Luffy nodded and said, "I am ignorant, so let's continue practicing." Lin Hai reminded, "You rubber bastard, don't hit me lightly or hard. The place where you hit me yesterday still hurts. Stop being so verbose, take the move." In this way, day by day, Lin Hai and Luffy grew up in their sparring, preparing to have a certain level of strength when they set sail next year, and Garp never imagined that he originally wanted to recruit someone to accompany his grandson, but in the end, a troublesome guy appeared who would make him both distressed and happy in the future. Chapter 8 finally set sail. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Year 1520 of the Hyuan calendar is the second year after Lin Hai traveled to the world of pirates. Lin Hai, who was far away from Windmill Village and had become much stronger, heard the voice of the coquettish system in his mind. "Ding, congratulations to the host for opening the system store." Lin Hai opened the panel in surprise. "Host, Lin Hai, power, 1200. Agility, 120. Stamina, 2100. Overlord color domineering, LV2, shock the opponent, can control the release freely. For those with weak will, it will be stunned directly. Coquettish coin, 6000.1. Space backpack, knife, sword, alias, Gao Feng, system mall, reboot doll, 450. TT, 45, instant noodles, 8, eggs, ham, 2. Shave. Life return, moon step, Duga 9 swords, 1 million, meteor sword technique, 1 million, that I have a sword, 100 million. Special note, except for daily necessities, other items cannot be used by others. Looking at the dazzling array of system stores, Lin Hai suddenly lost his composure. Lin Hai said coquettishly to the system, "System, I am a serious person. What do you mean by putting it in the store?" Coquettish system, if you don't like the items in the system mall, you don't have to buy them. The system refuses the host's question. He. Lin Hai said excitedly, "It has personality, I like it. But these things are too expensive. What the hell is that? I have a sword." It actually costs 100 million, which is really awesome. Before Lin Hai could complain, Luffy came from behind. Luffy said depressedly, Lin Hai, are you too shameless? You agreed not to use your ability, but you use it again. I don't think I've lost. Seeing that Luffy's attributes were higher than his own in all aspects, Lin Hai felt that it was better to improve faster by playing in the pirate group. After all, the system's rewards had already stated that one needed to perform aggressive actions in the event in order to obtain high rewards. Seeing that Luffy was already in front of him, Lin Hai confirmed, Luffy, we are planning to go to sea tomorrow, right? Luffy said happily, I have been waiting for this day for a long time. I am determined to be the Pirate King, Lin Hai said, I know, we have made great progress in the past few months, but it is really hard to leave suddenly. Luffy sat on the rock he usually sat on, looked at the sea, and didn't answer. Lin Hai walked forward and sat where Ace used to sit. The two of them faced the sea breeze, both full of expectations for the future, that unknown journey, meeting different people, different things, different adventures. Lin Hai said at the right time, Luffy, you are about to leave here, haven't you thought about what to say? After all, you have lived here for more than 10 years. Luffy, I really can't bear to part with it, but I have to be more decisive. After all, my dream. Lin Hai interrupted, forget it, don't be sad, we won't fight today. You can't beat me anyway. Luffy shouted angrily, you always cheat on me, okay? Lin Hai poked Luffy's head and said with disdain, am I cheating? Just tell me, is the space fruit my ability? Luffy pouted and said with a depressed look, I hate space fruits. Lin Hai said with a smile, let's go, I've hidden 2 bottles of good wine over there. Luffy's eyes lit up and he said, really? Is there any meat? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, let's go, glutton. Luffy, who originally didn't like drinking, was tricked by Lin Hai and gradually fell in love with drinking. After all, if a pirate doesn't drink, how can he have feelings? The next day, Windmill Village Port, there were 2 people sitting in a small boat. The boat was twice as big as the one Luffy sat in the original novel, and there were 2 empty barrels on the boat, because Lin Hai knew that if he encountered a storm or something, he could learn to hide in the barrel. As for the food, Lin Hai threw it all into the space backpack. The coastal port was silent for a while, and Luffy said boldly, goodbye everyone. Luffy, Lin Hai, goodbye. Have a nice trip. Hey, they just went out to sea on that ship. Is it really okay? The villagers on the shore were whispering there. After a while, Lin Hai and Luffy both noticed that something big was coming up from under the boat. Lin Hai and Luffy were both looking at one place, the bubbling sea surface. Lin Hai said, Luffy, I heard that this smelly fish occasionally eats. Since it came out today, let me help the villagers get rid of it. Luffy objected, I can also. Hey. Lin Hai said, the old method. When the villagers on the shore saw the 2 people playing rock, paper, scissors on the boat, they all became uneasy, and the huge beast had already jumped out of the sea. This monster, known as the King of the Near Sea, once bit off one of Shanks' arms. Hey, what's going on with the 2 of them? Luffy, Lin Hai, be careful behind you. You guys run away. Lin Hai on the boat said, Luffy, I won. Space Field. Chang. Before everyone could react, they saw a flash of white light, and the head of the King of the Sea flew out. Lin Hai jumped up, grabbed the offshore king's head and lower body with one hand, and shouted, Go, Pikachu. Suddenly, a huge fish body hit the deserted side of the coast. Rumble. After the smoke dissipated and the villagers saw what it was, they all couldn't help but swallowed. Sco. What kind of monsters are they? Wasn't it Lin Hai who threw them with one hand just now? It's amazing, how strong they are. I only saw the king of the offshore just emerging from the sea level, and, just. Lin Hai on the other side teleported directly to the boat in the space field. Luffy pouted, turned his head to one side, and muttered, What's so great, I can throw it to the shore. Lin Hai rolled his eyes at Luffy and said, No, your chicken legs. Luffy's eyes immediately lit up and he said, my chicken legs. Lin Hai, you are such a good person. Lin Hai didn't even bother to pay attention to Luffy. Soon after, the boat was far away from the windmill village. Looking at the surrounding water and sky, it was all blue, and it was impossible to tell the direction. Lin Hai said, Luffy, if we are just floating like this, where will we drift to? Luffy said indifferently, we will reach our destination eventually, right? Lin Hai said with a smile, you are at ease. Why don't you just say and float directly to the Grand Line? Luffy said in surprise, really? Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, what a fart. If there's a storm, who do you think among us will be drowned first? Luffy exclaimed, Nami. Storm. What do you think we should do? Lin Hai said, when we arrive at the destination, we quickly find a navigator to be our partner. Otherwise, we won't know where to go. Luffy nodded and said, what you said makes sense. Let's find a navigator first. Lin Hai leaned on the boat and muttered, it's a bit boring. We are just drifting like this, and we don't know where we will drift. Luffy smiled and said, alright, we'll get there eventually. The two of them just leaned on the boat. I don't know how long it took, but both Lin Hai and Luffy noticed something was wrong. After the two looked at each other, Lin Hai shouted, quickly row, we have fallen into a whirlpool. Luffy, oh. However, Lin Hai looked at the huge wave in the distance. No matter how hard he rowed, it was of no avail. Even if you use your abilities, the range of this wave is too wide. Looking at the huge waves tens of meters high and the whirlpool not far away, Lin Hai shouted, Luffy, hide in the barrel. You can't come out until someone opens it. Do you understand? Luffy asked confused, then what should you do? Lin Hai replied, I can't die yet. I will come to you when the time comes. It's not like you don't know that I swim on the coast every evening. It is good. Chapter 9 Encounter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Somewhere in the East China Sea, where there were dark clouds and thunder and lightning just now, it has become sunny and sunny now. The weather at sea is like a woman's face, it changes at will. There is a wooden barrel floating on the sea level, and the barrel contains Luffy. At that time, facing the boat that was about to be sucked into the center of the whirlpool, Lin Hai used his ability to move the boat away from the whirlpool. Unfortunately, the boat was blown away by the huge waves, and Lin Fan and Luffy were separated from each other holding a piece of wood. At this moment, a crew member on a passing merchant ship found the barrel and thought it contained treasure or wine, so he fished it out. Not far from the merchant ship, a pirate ship suddenly appeared. On the pirate ship, a woman's voice came from the bow, Kirby, who is the most beautiful person on this sea? A short boy with pink hair parted in the middle. And wearing glasses, his name is Kirby. Kirby scratched his head and replied, of course it's the captain of this ship, Miss Arita. Humph. Ha 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 ha. The lady standing at the bow is the captain of this ship. Her name is Arlie Rita. She has a lot of tonnage. She is covered in fat and has a lot of pockmarks on her face, but she is very ugly in a unique way. After laughing, Arita said happily, that's a good answer. Kirby, thank you. A crew member said at the right time, Miss Arita, this is a rare prey. Arita, that's right, let's rob the ship. Oh. The crew immediately cheered, and the cannon fire continued. Arita looked at the luxurious merchant ship in front of her and said, young men, let these bastards see how terrifying the girl thief Iron Rod Arita is. The crew was ordered, and all ran along the ropes to the merchant ship. Arita saw that everyone had passed, but Kirby still couldn't pass with the rope in his hand. Arita asked, Kebe, what are you doing? Kirby, I'm most afraid of this kind of scene. Arita was furious. How dare you disobey my order? After saying that, Arita kicked Kebe onto the merchant ship opposite. Then, the pirate captain Arita chose to jump over and said excitedly, hey ha, I'm coming. While Arita was taking her crew to hijack the ship, Lin Hai was still holding a piece of wood drifting. Lin Hai didn't know how long he had been floating. Anyway, he was really taken aback just now. It was the first time he saw the power of nature, and was brought into the sea tens of meters below by the waves. If he said he was not panic, that would be a lie. Fortunately, Lin Hai has a good psychological quality and can stay calm. I don't know how long it took, but suddenly I heard a faint sound of oh, oh, and Lin Hai suddenly became energetic. Lin Hai quickly paddled the water with one arm, getting closer to the source of the sound. No, he saw two ships in front of him. Space field. Lin Hai activated his space fruit ability, dodged and landed directly on the ship's deck. Before drying his clothes, he saw Luffy not far away being chased by a group of people. Then Lin Hai discovered that Luffy bounced a group of people away. It seems that Luffy still loves to play. Lin Hai said in surprise, "Hey Luffy, you had a lot of fun." Luffy said in surprise, "Ah Lin Hai, I knew you would be fine, ha ha ha." At this moment, Arita came over with a huge mace. Lin Hai's eyes suddenly lit up. Coquettish system, it's time to show off to the sky. Lin Hai walked up to Luffy and said, "Are they pirates?" Before Luffy could answer, Arita said first, "Ah, we are pirates. I am Captain Arita." "Who are you?" Luffy replied, "My name is Luffy, and next to me is my companion Lin Hai. We are also pirates." Arita said, "Are you also here to grab the treasure?" Lin Hai said first, "Yes, hand over your treasure quickly." Luffy looked at Lin Hai with confusion. "When did we come to snatch the treasure?" Lin Hai gave Luffy a reassuring look, and then saw Arita looking at him as if waiting for him to speak. Lin Hai wiped his hair coquettishly, and then said, "What are you looking at me for? Don't like me, although I am handsome and graceful. How can a pheasant match a phoenix? It's useless for you to think about it, and it's sinful to even think about it. Don't think that I don't know what you are thinking. You want to strike up a conversation with me, and then you have a chance. No, there is no chance at all. How could I like a mere pirate captain?" Everyone on the boat looked at Lin Hai dumbfounded, while Arita lowered her head with black lines on her face. Coquettish system, ding, congratulations to the host for performing a coquettish operation. Hearing the sound of the system, Lin Hai continued with satisfaction, "Why don't you look at me? Why should I scold you when you are such a good person? If you don't look at me, you obviously have bad intentions." Arita finally couldn't bear it anymore and waved the mace with a murderous look on her face. "Asshole, you dare to play tricks on me? Go to hell." Luffy on the other side said, "Lin Hai, squat down." After getting along for a long time, the two naturally had some tacit understanding. Lin Hai knew what Luffy wanted to do. As soon as Lin Hai squatted down, he saw an elongated arm hitting Arita's stomach. "What?" "I saw the obese Arita, who was directly kicked away by Luffy's charged punch. On the other side is KB, the little guy who was dragged into doing odd jobs by Arita after accidentally being aboard a pirate ship, and who was kicked to the merchant ship by Arita not long ago." KB stammered a little, the scale. Ignoring KB, Lin Hai looked at the Arita crew and said slowly, "Do you have a boat there?" One of them said, "Yes, yes." Lin Hai threatened, "Why don't you take me to get it?" Luffy asked confused, "What do we need a boat for?" Lin Hai rolled his eyes and said, "Our ship was washed away by the waves. If we don't get one, how can we set sail?" Luffy suddenly said, "Lin Hai, you bastard's brain is so useful." Lin Hai laughed and said, "Hurry up." At this time, KB stopped Lin Hai and said, "I know the next stopping point is Shield's Town. Can you please let me take you there?" Seeing Lin Hai's doubts, KB explained, "I have wanted to be a navy since I was a child, and then catch all the guys who committed crimes. And the nearest place here, that is, there is a naval base in Shield's Town. I want to join the army there." Lin Hai said with a smile, "I have no objection, but you have to ask my captain, he will decide." After saying that, Lin Hai clicked on his personal panel, host, Lin Hai, strength, 1300, 1200 plus 100, agility, 130, 120 plus 10, physical strength, 2300, 2100 plus 200, Overlord color domineering, LV2, shock the opponent, can control the release freely. For those with weak will, it will be stunned directly. Coquettish coin, 6800, 6000.1 plus 800, space backpack, knife, sword, alias, Gao Feng, after reading this information, Lin Hai couldn't help but marvel. The rewards he would get from fighting against the pirate group were indeed worth a lot. After a while, Lin Hai, Luffy and KB got on the boat. There was a boat next to the boat. With orange hair and a bumpy figure, who could it be if it wasn't Nami? Chapter 10 One Must Kill That Guy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. After Lin Hai and Nami looked at each other, Lin Hai couldn't help but sigh. Nami is really beautiful, with this figure, ahem. Without thinking too much, Lin Hai said, "Hi, beautiful lady, are you going to Shields Town?" Nami, huh? Yes, I'm going there. Lin Hai jumped directly onto Nami's boat. For a moment, the boat Nami was on shook. Nami exclaimed, "Don't you have a boat there? Why are you here for me?" Lin Hai put his arms around Nami's waist and said softly, "The boat is too small, and 3 people can't even lie down on it." After the boat stabilized, Nami's face was covered with black lines. Was it the first time that the person holding her waist met her? How rude. Nami raised her eyebrows and couldn't help but said, "Don't let me go yet. How long are you going to hold me?" Ahaha. Lin Hai quickly stopped his hand, looked up at the sky, and said, "Today's weather is so good, it's cloudless." Ding, congratulations to the host for completing a coquettish operation, and you will be rewarded with a box. Lin Hai couldn't help but his face turned dark. What does the system mean? Is he, Lin Hai, that kind of person? Ha ha ha. Luffy on the other ship held his stomach and laughed. Lin Hai, your brain is really good. Lin Hai waved his hand and said, "You're not bad either, Luffy." The two looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. KB and Nami on the side looked confused, always feeling that these two people were abnormal. After a while, the ship started to sail, and Lin Hai said, "Luffy, do you know if you want to follow this ship?" Luffy, why? Lin Hai, do you know how to sail? Luffy said directly, "No." Nami couldn't help but complain, "You can't still say it so confidently." Lin Hai pointed at Nami and said to Luffy, "She should know how to sail. Since the destination is the same, let her take us there." After saying that, Lin Hai introduced to Nami, "My name is Lin Hai, the one with pink hair on the ship is called KB, and the other one is called Luffy. What's your name?" Although he knew that the beauty in front of him was called Nami, what would people think if Lin Hai directly told her name? Nami replied, "My name is Nami. You guys are pretty good at it. I saw you beat that pirate captain away just now." Lin Hai looked at the bag on the side. Forget it, just pretend that he didn't know, otherwise he was afraid that Nami would think that he was after her treasure, and he might be driven back to another ship. At this time, Luffy exclaimed, "Nami, are you a navigator?" Nami was stunned and replied, "No, but my sailing skills are not bad." Luffy said in surprise, "My name is Monkey D. Luffy, and I aspire to become the Pirate King. Lin Hai next to you is my deputy captain. You can be the navigator on my ship, Nami." "Nami, you are actually pirates. Thank you for the invitation, but I don't want to be a pirate. I hate pirates the most." After being rejected by Nami, Luffy would not force it, so he had to sit back on the boat again. Lin Hai, on the other hand, leaned on the side of the boat and did not interfere. Nami would not get on the boat until the issue of the pirate's occupation of Nami's hometown was resolved. Lin Hai knew this very well. At the right time, KB on the side said worriedly, "Luffy, I heard that the pirate hunter Roronoa Zoro is there." Luffy asked in confusion, "Pirate hunter? Is he strong?" Nami looked at Kirby with some surprise. Pirate hunter, Nami had heard of it. "I couldn't help but listen curiously to the conversation between the two," KB replied, "Of course he is very strong. He is called a monster in human skin." "Really?" Luffy held his hat and said, "If he is a good person, I will invite him to be my partner." KB said in surprise, "Hey, buddy. Hey Luffy, that's a pirate hunter, aren't you afraid of being killed by him?" Luffy said with a smile, "I am very strong, and there is Lin Hai, he can't beat us." Nami on the side couldn't help but twitch her eyes and glanced at Lin Hai who was sleeping on her boat. She couldn't help complaining that it was really unheard of for a pirate to invite a pirate hunter to become a pirate. While several people were chatting, the boat soon entered the port of Shields Town. Upon arriving at Shields Town, Nami said, "I have something to do, so let's say goodbye here. Anyway, we will meet again in the future," Lin Hai said nonchalantly, "then we'll see you again by fate." Luffy on the side asked, "How about we go find Zoro first?" Kirby strongly objected, "Mr. Luffy, what I just said to you is all in vain." Lin Hai said with a smile, "You have heard only rumors, and you have never seen them. You just make judgments from rumors. Are you sure you can be a good navy?" KB suddenly choked up. This kind of prejudice was indeed a big mistake, so he had no choice but to follow Luffy and the others to find Zoro's location. Soon, after some questioning, Lin Hai and others arrived at the naval base. On the naval training ground, a 2-meter-long cross was planted on the ground, and a strong-looking young man wearing a black turban was tied to the cross. Despite the scorching sun, the young man tied there still had a good momentum, giving people a sense of oppression and making people afraid to approach. At this time, Luffy, who climbed up the wall, couldn't help but sigh, "Is that the legendary monster? Hey, you are an eyesore, gone." The young man who was tied to the cross couldn't help but said when he noticed a few people on the wall, looking at this kind of person, Lin Hai really didn't know how to talk to him properly. Except for Luffy, this is one of Luffy's charms. If it were Lin Hai, he wouldn't have that kind of good temper. At this time, a staircase suddenly came up on the wall. It turned out to be a little girl. She was really cute. He saw the little girl climbing up the stairs awkwardly. Lin Hai had no choice but to say, "Space field." Lin Hai used his ability to send the little girl to the naval base. The little girl who suddenly entered the naval base looked confused. She looked around and still didn't understand how she got in. Lin Hai on the wall said with a smile, "Don't look at it. If you want to do something, do it quickly and come back quickly." The little girl seemed to have forgotten how she came in. She ran to Zoro and said, "Brother, you haven't eaten for a long time. This is a rice ball made by me. Eat some quickly." When Sauron was about to scold the little girl to leave quickly to avoid being executed as a rebel by Menka, the ruler of this town, Lin Hai used his own ability to reach the little girl. Lin Hai took the rice ball from the little girl and said funnily, "His hands are tied, how can he take it?" Sauron glanced at Lin Hai and said, "I'm not hungry, take her out of here." Lin Hai nodded and said, "Eat quickly." Just when Zoro was about to say something, Lin Hai took the rice ball and stuffed it directly into Zoro's mouth. You. Lin Hai said, "Let's go have a big meal first and come back to talk to you later." Space field. Ding, congratulations to the host for completing a sexy operation. Lin Hai's face was full of confusion. What's wrong with him? At this time, the little girl who suddenly arrived outside the naval base said confusedly, "Brother, did you do this?" Lin Hai nodded and said, "Yes, where is the restaurant here? Let's go eat first." After finishing speaking, Lin Hai turned his head to Luffy who came down from the wall and said, "Right Luffy," that when Luffy came from behind and heard about eating, he had forgotten all other things. His eyes suddenly lit up and said, "Eating? This is the most important thing. Let's go quickly." And after Zoro finally swallowed what was in his mouth in the base, he couldn't help but secretly thought that he must kill that guy when the time comes. He almost choked to death on the rice ball just now.